We've been talking a lot about intergenerational objects,
Yeah.
like the things that exactly what you were just saying, the things that don't go to Goodwill and the things that when you're like moving apartments and you're feeling ready to purge all of your belongings, these are the ones that you have some attachment to and you're not going to part with.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Autodesk. Welcome to Shop Talk, the podcast series where we talk to makers, inventors, and designers from shop to shop. Today, we're talking to Hunter Craighill. Hunter started Craighill Company from nothing, knowing almost nothing, and turned it into a thriving business that makes elevated everyday objects. This is a really interesting one, so let's dive in. All right, we're here with Hunter Craighill of Craighill Company. Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Yeah, it's nice to chat.
Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yep. So I'm Hunter Craighill, and for the last almost 10 years, I've been running a business called Craighill, which is my last name, with my partner Zach, and I think now we're up to 10 or 11 full-time employees, and um, this is like the perpetually the challenge that I always run up against, which is I'm terrible at the elevator pitch. It's like we do such a interesting and challenging range of products to like tie a bow on to like have a short little description about. But we make basically, I think, design objects, tools, and toys, like things that you would put in your treasure box or things that are kind of elevated everyday objects. We do a lot of metal things, but we aren't really confined to one category or one material or one process. And um, so we make a lot of different design objects.
Yeah, you make these really beautiful, well-made, high quality everyday objects. One of my favorites is this. It's a little matchstick caddy, little matchstick cup thing, and the it's made of metal, and then the outside of it is knurled so that you can do strike anywhere matches on it. Um, a beautiful thing that you'd want on your desk. It's also practical. And it's this really cool thing where I get the impression, I haven't received the samples you sent yet. Thanks for doing that. But I get the impression these are things that they're mundane objects that are worth keeping for the rest of your life. This is the kind of thing where, you're not, it's not uh, the pair of scissors that you're gonna give to Goodwill when they get dull or something like that. You're actually going to take care of these things and keep them for the long term and have them out on display. Um, how did you get into that? Like, where did this idea come from to create a company around this?
We've been talking a lot about intergenerational objects,
Yeah.
like the things that exactly what you were just saying, the things that don't go to Goodwill and the things that when you're like moving apartments and you're feeling ready to purge all of your belongings, these are the ones that you have some attachment to and you're not going to part with. But yeah, origin story. It wasn't a very linear path. I feel like maybe a lot of creative design people have a similar story, but um, yeah, I studied architecture in undergrad,
Me
but
too.
went to college thinking I was going. You studied architecture?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was this was like at Wesleyan, which is a liberal arts school, so it was not a very rigorous kind of technical um, education. It was like part of the art department, and but I went there thinking I was going to study music or environmental studies or sociology or something, and kind of tried some different things out and discovered um, architecture. And yeah, I realized that like I kind of hated staying up all night working on term paper, but I loved staying up all night working on a model or like a drawing. And I was like, oh, like if I enjoy this, maybe this is what I should pursue. Um, and so after school, I worked for an architect and found that the kind of practice of architecture was kind of slower than maybe I had the patience for or had the attention span for. And yeah, like I worked for a graphic designer, worked for a like kind of print shop, did some marketing, and then ultimately discovered this company Best Made, which was doing kind of axes and outdoor equipment in a really elevated way, and talked my way into a job there right at the beginning, and ended up kind of leading the product development there for the first few years. And just like cold called factories, like trying to figure out how to get products made. Like I really had no idea. Like I didn't know what a purchase order was. Like
Hmm.
and found very sympathetic people and factories that often would like show me how it's done and how do you make things um but I've always kind of been like curious about how the world is the way it is and how things get made so yeah, so basically had a real crash course in product development at Best Made and got to work on some really cool things and also got to see the side of the commerce side of it. So, those were the early days of Shopify and um yeah, Best Made was like really kind of bootstrapped and building an audience and building a direct to consumer channel with very little overhead and yeah, I got to be on the ground floor of it and yeah, after a few years there, I kind of decided I wanted to try my own um, go at it. I had a slightly different aesthetic and slightly different type of products that I was interested in pursuing, and um, I actually left and I tried to start my own studio that kind of wasn't very successful, and I ended up doing some consulting and design work on the side and learned a lot about wholesale and yeah, then not just direct to consumer, but like how you can incorporate other sales channels into a business like that. And yeah, in 2015, yeah, I felt like I was at this crossroads where it was like, do I kind of throw in the towel on the like entrepreneurship and go get a job at well, West Elm or Design the Reach or something and try to do product development there, or do I try to do this for myself one more time? And yeah, I took the gamble, which like I think still we'll see if it's the right choice. I feel like there was certainly some opportunity cost, but yeah, so I think that was what got us to the beginning, and then even the early days of Craighill were pretty different from what it is today. It's certainly been like there's been a roller coaster of some pivots and turns and stuff, but I think that the core of the concept, the kind of like curiosity about manufacturing, the kind of creating really elevated everyday objects. That all feels like there was an original thread there that has maintained. So that was the long-winded kind of story.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, well, let's
Yeah,
just start with your architecture education. How does that how does that inform industrial design? I've got some experience in this myself where like having had an architecture degree, working in the architecture field, and then got into things like exhibit design and industrial design. Um, and there's a different perspective there it's just there by nature. It's a different kind of education. There's less emphasis maybe on sketching. You're thinking about spaces and not objects. Like, where do you notice that background informing the stuff you do?
I think that my architecture, I mean, really one of my main architecture professors at school, I credit with shaping a lot of my approach to design in general, and yeah, the way that projects were kind of evaluated um, with kind of design, like you had to justify your decision making. There had to be like a reason for why this thing is the way it is, and like why you chose this material, and why this corner is round and not beveled, and why whatever it is. Yeah, so I think I do think a lot about our product design process through that lens that I was taught in school, and about that kind of decision making process and about kind of justifying materials and forms and I feel like I get to sneak in certain types of ornamentation, through like geometric patterns and stuff that I, at least privately, I have some like rationale for why it's justified or needed. I also think that like a lot of what we were doing in school was model making, which I loved, and model making, this kind of like small crafting and detailing, and there's like the scale and the pace of it feels like prototyping a product. And so there was some pretty literal overlap there, at least like in retrospect. I don't think at the time I appreciated that. Um, and then ultimately in practice, architecture, I think that the like client driven nature of it, I think that there's a lot of product design work I mean, maybe most product design work is client driven in some ways, but I think and certainly we have quote unquote clients that are like our customers and our audience, and we have to like make products that people want to buy. But I feel very lucky that I don't have like generally speaking, lots of like clients that we have to spend lots of time kind of managing.
The ornamentation thing is really interesting. I think some of these things are we're starting to see a shift there because we've gone through all these different academic periods, right? That if you're in this world, you know by name. Um, this was all kind of jump started with the modernist movement. The famous Bauhaus quote, "Ornament is crime." That's something that's kind of carried through. And if you're in a school of architecture, it is. I mean, it's almost like dogma. Like you don't decorate your buildings. You don't put ornament on your buildings. You don't put a frieze around the top of it. You don't do crown molding. Like there's all these things that are just they're untouchable. But you move over to the world of industrial design, and you've got people like Philippe Starck who has no qualms about that at all. Like if it's appropriate for the product, I'm going to put it there. And where where he justifies it is this concept of desire, right? Where it's like not only does it need to be clean and good design and well made and manufactured in a way that makes it fit for use, but it also has to be something that people desire because otherwise, who are you making it for, right? Um, yeah, I mean, it's where is this showing up in your work? Is this something that's you're starting to experiment with now, or do you have any examples you can think of where you've kind of gone down the ornamental road in some way?
Yeah, I do have that brainwashing from studying architecture and from having to justify every small detail and decision, where it's hard for me to just be like, I think that that looks good, and like that's the reason that I put that pattern on it or that I put that shape on it. It's like I like that shape, and that's that's a no-no. Like I still like I can't even like I'm the boss and I put my name on the products and I'm uncomfortable with it. But we make some playful shapes and we have some things that are like I think admittedly have character and feel sometimes to me like almost goofy. Um and I think that I try to find form through geometry a lot of the time. I think that like geometry feels like a set of rules that can be played with. And so it's like, polka dots are like maybe the most obvious example. I think we actually like made a YouTube video about what we call pips, which it's like our internal nomenclature for putting like dimples on an object. So like if you take a surface and you put like golf ball dimples on it. I mean, you can watch our little video that we made about it about the origin of the term pips, but that's like go to kind of like move for us. I feel like when a surface either needs some kind of like um, texture for tactility for like purchase for some reason, or if it just like honestly seems a little bit too plain, too minimal. Um, like my instinct is like let's pip it, let's put some pips on this baby. Uh, and but then like the exact patterning of that, there's like 100 different ways you could pattern those pips. Um, so I'm like, I'll grab one of our I'll grab a few things. You can like cut out the section of me searching for samples in my office. I mean, some of this won't come up on camera, but the our like Metrolog ruler, our
Okay.
like caliper ruler that we made.
Mhm.
This like rail has all of these dimples on it. So um yeah, and then similarly like on our wine key, this is like probably gonna be harder to see, but this is an injection molded PP part that we ended up
Mm.
putting all these little dots on. So um
Yeah.
I mean that's like a very small example of it feels like ornamentation to me. It's like functional ornamentation, but it's ornamentation and like polka dots uh have like so much character. They seem so playful and silly for how simple it is, and so that feels like it's the sweet spot for me right now. So I don't want to put dots on everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
but
it's
we're working on some other kind of even uh weirder stuff that'll be out soon. Where I think it's going to be pushing us further into ornamentation as a little bit of an experiment. We're like working on some new versions of our. We have this like card case. This is like one of the this is a prototype, but we're working on some interesting new forms that are going to feel, I think, more decorative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said that geometry is kind of the, it's where you find a way to make ornamentation that's got some kind of rationality behind it. Um,
Totally.
and that's, I mean, really, you've probably already got this book, but it's called The Grammar of Ornament. It was written in the 19th century. It was kind of you know, around the time of William Morris, I think, where, sort of this, it's like a encyclopedia of ornamental details from a bunch of different periods and places and stuff like that. And what you find there is that that's sort of the foundation of it to begin with is geometry, right? Like there's a that creates this rational substrate that makes it something that you can recognize as beautiful, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting to reduce that down to polka dots, right? Like something that's about as simple as it gets, right? And then yeah, maybe there's a way to expand from there and like kind of play with the geometry a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing that new experiment. That's going to be cool. Yeah, and you mentioned also there was this period where you were just kind of figuring things out, cold calling factories and, trying to like, how do I get this stuff made? Um, that's a big hurdle, I think, for a lot of people that are interested in this stuff. There's no shortage. I mean, you go out on social media and there's a lot of people that have really cool ideas. And they're all, kind of 3D printed prototypes, right? And it doesn't really seem to go any further than that. I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of people. Just it's intimidating to try to figure out how to get something made. Um, Famous cliche, right? Hardware is hard. It's expensive and it's difficult to get something made in a quantity that you can sell and to time the market right and to find the people to sell it to. There's a lot that's going on there, way beyond just being a good designer. So, can you tell us a little bit? Let's just start with the manufacturing part. How did this begin with cold calling factories and having this kind of reliable, manufacturing supply chain warehouse situation that you've got now?
It was willingness to look stupid at the same time. Like I think I was conscious that I was like calling these factories and asking kind of dumb questions and oftentimes not finding someone that was like patient or sympathetic and kind of getting rudely turned away. And then yeah, like every fourth or fifth time I would do that, I would actually find someone pretty helpful who took pity on me and helped me out and like kind of walked me through some steps of it or like agreed to let me come visit the factory and like actually see what they were doing um and yeah, it's not any one skill. It's like you kind of have to be good at a lot of different things in order to pull it off. You have to have like some idea and some belief in that idea about what the product is. You have to have some ability to like communicate it and design it and make it technical. You have to be able to find the right factory and like there's all of like the kind of social challenges of like finding the right manufacturing partners and trusting them and them trusting you and um, yeah, figuring out how to produce it for the right price, and then everything after you produce it, like the photography and the storytelling and the marketing and the fulfillment and the warehousing. And um, I'm like a little bit good at all of those things. I'm not like great at any of them.
Yeah, and your manufacturing ecosystem, did you just build that on your own? Like you've got your own network of factories that produce just different processes. Like this is my injection molding factory. These people do CNC. This is, whatever other process. Is that kind of how you have it running?
Yeah, we've it's been built kind of organically over the years, and originally we were doing everything domestically, and we're like totally bootstrapped, so we had very little funds, and so we were actually we had a workshop, and we still have a workshop, but we were doing a lot of metal finishing and some bending, and we could get products products made. We could get like a bracelet formed out of bar stock at a wire forming factory, but it would come in here and the end had been sheared off, and so it was like razor sharp and it was oxidized, and we had to tumble it and deburr it and form it, like size it, and And that was out of necessity. It's like we just didn't have the budget to like send it to a jeweler or finishing shop or something else. And I think as we got a little bit bigger, we found slightly better partners who could meet some of our specs a little bit um, more willingly because we were sending bigger orders and kind of it started a little bit before COVID. We hit some projects and designs like this puzzle, the Venn puzzle, was one that it's like a fairly complex shape. It's like three identical parts, but you can see that this is like a complicated, and it's like this is solid stainless steel, so this is like a pretty dense, complex part. And um, yeah, this was the first product that we did overseas, and it felt like a big leap, felt like a big jump for us. And we had some like hiccups with it, and we've definitely had a lot of hiccups with sourcing internationally, but it worked out, and we were able to do it at a price that made sense for it, and that ultimately kind of like shaped the course of the company in many ways. I feel like it gave us this confidence to do some of these more uh, untraditional, strange objects, and yeah, and so we've kind of fleshed out more of an international supply chain, and so we still have some domestic factories that we work with, but we have probably a dozen factories, mostly in Asia, that do different processes. And yeah, some that do like cork molding, and some that work with stone, and some that work with injection molding, and then a bunch of different metal factories. Actually, the factory that makes this now, we do a whole bunch of different projects with, and yeah, and then we go and visit them every year. We try to see as many of them as possible. Like me and our design manager spent a couple weeks in Asia visiting our factories and kind of building relationships and problem solving um and just learning about who they are and what they're doing. And that's like a hugely important piece of it as well.
Yeah. And so what are the domestic factories you're working with? What do they do?
So there's honestly a lot of it's been machining and prototyping.
Hmm.
And there's a couple products that we've had that are, I mean, it's some of the original products that essentially, like um the factory, it's not actually this product anymore, but the factory that made this product, the jack puzzle, for us, which was designed kind of to be super efficient because it was like it's just machined from bar stock.
Hmm.
And so we were most of our original products, we were trying to find designs that we could produce with like one material, one process, or at least one factory, like not have to kind of um, subcontract or outsource different operations on it. Um, and so, that was a fun design challenge in many ways, is like identifying like how can we turn one bar stock chunk of brass or steel or whatever into a like interesting, covetable design object that is like high enough perceived value. So yeah, that's most of it. I mean, we work with a couple local packaging people because there's like often, we're not making huge runs of anything, and oftentimes like our biggest production runs are like a couple thousand, a few thousand
Hmm.
units usually, and oftentimes we're kind of talking the factory into making us like a sample run of 200 pieces or 250 pieces. And yeah, but basically since 2019 or 2020, most of our new production, like new products, we've done overseas.
Hmm. Yeah. You have any other samples on the desk we could look at?
I mean, sure. I mean, we have I always have lots of samples around. I mean, so this was like one of our bigger products I released last year, which was our sidewinder knife, which has this kind of
Cool.
handle that splits apart and separates, which was a fun engineering challenge to
Yeah.
figure that one out.
I can just picture
The
the fusion model for that one.
oh yeah,
Yeah. You're like,
we have we modeled it up with proper kind of like linkages, so we could really move it and play around with it.
yeah, your community seems to be, I mean, I don't know, the one I'm the most aware of is Instagram, right? And you've got this really interesting approach that you don't see too often with, with companies that do the kind of work you do, which is, you make this content around, here's something we're experimenting with, here's an idea, here's how we're prototyping this object or whatever it is. And it's super engaging. But it's interesting that that's a mechanism for you to get feedback and like maybe figure out like which products to prioritize, pricing, that kind of stuff. How does that inform your work?
What I deep down want to be doing all day is like experimenting. I want to be playing with mechanical mechanisms and tools and dissecting clocks and like understanding them um and usually it's in pursuit of like loosely I think that I'm going to learn something that'll going to inform a product idea that we have kicking around. But sometimes it leads me in a different direction and inspires something else, and that's cool. And yeah, and so we, for example, we did these a few videos about like four bar linkages, and it was just like our own trial and error playing with and understanding four bar linkages, which is like maybe very basic mechanical engineering stuff, but like I'm not a mechanical engineer, so this
Yeah.
was new experimentation for us. And I think we had this hypothesis that um, showing some of that behind the scenes experimentation and play would be interesting to some people, to some portion of our audience, and then also, yeah, we could validate like, is there, like, yeah, do people find this generally to be like an appealing concept to explore? And also what surprised me that came out of it is that there's been a lot of help that's come out of it, where people are like, you need to buy this book, which is like an amazing resource to provide four bar linkages, or you need to look up this Wikipedia page. And we find these people who are actual experts and they want to weigh in. And that's been awesome. And
Yeah,
because like
that's
that's what I
cool.
want.
All right, Hunter. So this one's going to be out of left field, but we ask every guest a zombie apocalypse preparation question, right? So let's just imagine your favorite zombie apocalypse universe. Um, that you need to start over rebuilding your shop. You can get whatever you need; it's out there somewhere, but you're putting yourself at personal risk to go get it. So, what do you go for first?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's like presume maybe that there's some like real basics that are in place. It's like there's like
Yeah.
a pencil and paper, and you know,
Yeah, you've got food, you've got a secure place to stay, right? Like you're all right, but
yeah,
you need to rebuild the shop, and like
yeah.
that's gonna enable you to participate in rebuilding society. So, what do you start with?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's like our 3D printer is such a workhorse, and it's like,
Yeah,
like our we have a bamboo, one of the new ones, and
yeah,
honestly, we need to get like two more of them because this one is running feels like 24 hours a day,
nice.
and um, that is like such a critical. I mean, obviously, then you need like the computer, and we need Fusion, and you need power
Yeah,
to run
yeah.
all those things.
Well, this
Um,
assume our servers are still up, and like you can
yeah,
still access the cloud for some reason.
yeah. That's very localized zombie apocalypse. Um, yeah, our 3D printer is like a workhorse, and it's such a critical tool for us for like, I feel like we start with sketching, and then we get into oftentimes it's like wire forming, or we make a lot of clay models and do a lot of like different analog design processes, but fairly quickly it gets into CAD. But then validating that 3D form in the print is like every single day we're doing that.
Yeah,
Um, and so I don't know if that's like the most creative answer, but it's the truth.
sure. No, I get it, man.
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah, we get that one a lot. I mean, usually when I ask people, I don't know, everybody's got a kind of a different take on it, but that's a fairly common answer because it's such a versatile tool, and it's so easy to use now, and like using it is such, it comes at such low cost to
yeah,
get something that's useful. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable where they've gotten. Shout out to Bamboo
totally.
Labs. They're one of our partners.
Big
And they
shout
they
out.
make
Big shout
really
out.
good stuff. Yeah. Good job, guys. Cool.
Yeah,
All right, Hunter. Well, thanks so much, man. Can you tell us where we can find your work, where we can find your how we can buy stuff, and where your community?
totally. Yeah. So my website is craighill.co, .co, and hopefully there's a link somewhere, so I don't
Yeah.
have to spell it. And yeah, Instagram, Craighill Company, TikTok, and YouTube, Craighill Company or Craighill Co.
Yeah.
Verify that. Um, And yeah, we have all of our products on our website at craighill.co. And yeah, that's where you can find all the info and all the products. And yeah, we're pretty responsive on Instagram, so shoot us a message if you have any questions or thoughts. Hope you like it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Hunter. Really appreciate your time. This is a good one.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Hey everyone, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things ShopTalk. If you're ready to try Fusion for yourself, find the link in our description.